cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find, spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so wizards, oh, 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 oh. Life is a spell we know. We're casting joy and glow, oh, oh. That's a wizard show.
Another day, another dollar, another attempt at Wizards of the Coast to do something right, only for it to fail miserably. Are they doing this on purpose? Good morning and welcome. It is I, the OGGM. It's 8:30 in the morning on this, the 18th day of June. It's 72 degrees and sunny with a little morning haze here. Where I live, it's Site B, because, you know, nobody in California can walk to work. So I obviously don't live in California. Let's not forget that pearl of wisdom. So you would think that after yesterday, Wizards of the Coast / Darrington would be maybe laying low. Maybe hoping that we could focus on them doing something positive so that we would have forgotten the whole Crawford, Kendrick, Perkins, Jess thing. Well, apparently the Wall Street Journal remembers, because the Wall Street Journal just posted a little article sort of wrapping up the year so far for Wizards of the Coast by letting us know that between now and today, between January 1st and today, 3% of Hasbro Wizards of the Coast workforce has trundled off to greener pastures. Trundled off. Now, the article does say Hasbro, but if you dig in a little deeper, it's one specific part of Hasbro that has been set sail. And that's Wizards of the Coast, mostly Wizards of the Coast Digital, Wizards of the Coast Magic the Gathering, and of course, Dungeons and Dragons. Now, 3% of a workforce being gone between January 1st and today might not mean a lot to some. Oh, I got a comment already. Walk upstairs to work every day. I'm blessed to work from home. Dice Tales remembers. Remember that guy was like, "Oh, you're lying where you live. Nobody in California could live and could walk to work." That's how the whole Site Beast thing started. Yeah, I can't walk to work, so obviously I don't live in California. The genius that comes out of that guy. Now, anyways, 3% of a workforce with after the whole tariffs thing and everything else that's happening, that doesn't seem that bad. Except, of course, when you find out that the current workforce of Wizards of the Coast was 5,000 people as of yesterday. 5,000 people from a company that once employed 1.5 million people between their various sites. Let us not forget that Wizards of the Coast also has a site in Texas. I know we never talk about that one because they're the smart half of Wizards of the Coast. A smaller site out in Rhode Island and a few other little baby sites scattered across the United States and even up into Canada. So while we tend to think that Wizards of the Coast is only that megalith in Washington, Seattle, Renton, Washington, we kind of forget that. Oh wait, they have a whole other department, because again, the Texas-based Wizards of the Coast is the smart one who never do anything to attract attention. I guess they're the half that actually does the work, and the Seattle half is the shuck and jives, entertainment part. So yeah, Magic the Gathering and Digital Entertainment and Dungeons and Dragons staff, a company that once employed 1.5 million people only a few years ago, now employs 5,000. Of that 5,000, 3% have been let go between January 1st and today. Amongst that 3%, of course, being pretty much everybody who was running the company. Crawford's gone, Perkins gone, the assistant vice president or whatever she was gone is gone. The D&D Beyond staff gone, art staff gone. Pretty much the entire anything to do with physical media gone. Most of the Magic the Gathering stuff is gone. Most if not all the Magic the Gathering art is gone. The video game company gone. Their relationship with Laren and Baldur's Gate gone. So that leaves 5,000 people, one of which is still Mackenzie. She's still there. And if I, and I think I speak for all of us who actually appreciate the hobby, if there's anybody that Hasbro needs to let go next, it's the manic pixie dream girl who refuses to admit she's a manic pixie dream girl that is Mackenzie Dams. So yeah, from 1.4 million to 5,000, 3% of that 5,000 gone, including the entire upper management. But that's not all. Why stop there? Because speaking of Magic the Gathering and Wizards of the Coast's main moneymaker, Wizards of the Coast has been accused of false advertising and ruining Magic the Gathering. This comes to us from our good friend, the Magic Historian. The Magic Historian has 6.1K subscribers. I don't normally cover Magic the Gathering because there's other people out there that do, but let's give them a little shout out and a subscribe. Normally we do this on Saturdays, but hey, we're talking about the guy, so bam. So is this false advertising, or is this just a sample of stupid? And if it is a sample of stupid, is it actually a little bit bigger than we think about it? So there's a new Secretlair drop coming out. Secretlair is a part of the Magic the Gathering metaverse where they do the little experiment short runs. Sometimes the cards are legal, sometimes they're not legal. Whenever they do a Secretlair lately, it seems to be problematic and often accused of, this is not the first time that a Secretlair has been accused of false advertising. When they did the Super Duper Classic run, where you had the chance of getting the big nine against the Power 9 and the Black Lotus and everything again, they forgot to mention that the cards weren't legal and weren't resellable, so that anybody who pulled a Black Lotus thinking that oh wow, look, Black Lotus, it's like what, $5,000 now? Oh no, actually it's probably worth about 75 cents. Same thing with when they did the Lord of the Rings and the One Ring of Power, and people thought the One Ring of Power was going to be available and that they could draw one, and then it turned out nope, actually we only made one. We made one of that card. And the guy who got it. So this one is for the latest Secretlairs. And what the false advertising accusation is that on the ad for the product, they list one set of prices. But when you get into the actual explanation of the upcoming product, it's a different set of prices. So on the actual ad for the upcoming product, it's $50 for the Super Foil edition or $40 for the normal edition. But if you go into the article where they're talking about it, $50 for the normal edition is $30, and the Super Duper Deluxe edition 50 is $40. So there is about a $10 difference between what it says on the actual ad and what it says on the article. Now, is that false advertising, or is it just a simple editing mistake that a company who we know notoriously goes back into their own product and changes things thanks to the computer? You don't own anything on D&D Beyond. Sorry, even though you think you do. Yeah, couldn't they have just gone, oh, wait, we made a mistake. Can somebody go back in and fix that? I don't know, somebody in editing or post, or the guy who put the product from its real world onto the computer, maybe the guy who took the picture of the product, maybe the guy who wrote the article. I don't know. Maybe somebody could have gone in and just went, oh, hey, we've got a $10 difference. And somebody else would have said, well, Bill, fix that before we go to print. Because the last thing we would want is for somebody to say false advertising. Well, normally you would do that because there's a whole, normal corporations employ something. They usually one guy who's like quality control. I was quality control at Target for a hop, skip, and a jump back when I worked at Target. So there's usually a guy or a couple people whose job it is to make sure things like this don't happen, especially before we go to press. In the world of press, that would be the editor. The editor whose job it is to go over the article and say whether you should put it or not. But cycling back to the first story, Wizards of the Coast has fired or lost 3% of its staff since the beginning of the year. Remember earlier this year where they fired 1,000+ people? Well, amongst those people were the people whose job it is to make sure mistakes like this don't happen. So somebody missed the fact that there was a $10 difference between the two posts and allowed it to go to press and allowed it to cycle for at least 24 to 48 hours, if not longer. Enough time for the rest of the world to go, hey, wait a minute. Which price am I paying? Because this one says it's $29 and that one says it's $39. And you know, when I go in the store, I'm going to show them the article that says, no, it's $29, not $39. Thank you very much. Give it to me for $29. $29 for a Secretlair, by the way, is pretty cheap when these things normally run 60, 70, $80. So yeah, is it false advertising or is it just a sample of idiocy because 90% of the staff is gone, including the people whose job it is to fix things like this, but they continue to hire vanity employees like Mackenzie who do nothing. I mean, we can speak ill of Crawford and Perkins all we want, but at the end of the day, they still actually did something. We don't really like what they did, especially Perkins. I mean, Crawford and Perkins guilty by association. But at least they did something. At least they've had tangible skills that they brought to Wizards. The result we're not happy with, but we can't deny that they actually did things. Instead, we have people like Mackenzie and all these other current idiots who apparently have no tangible skills that could work in the real world. And then we get mistakes like this. Now, I don't think this is false advertising. I don't think this is insidious. I think this is simply an editing mistake because there's nobody there whose job it is to catch these things. So they just, like me, just let some kid, just post things on. I post things up all the time with mistakes because of my dyslexia. And I don't catch them, and then somebody else, usually Aaron the Relentless or somebody else will text me and say, oh, by the way, you made a mistake. But I'm one guy with no staff. Wizards has 5,000 people left, divided by 3 different locations. One of those people should have gone and went, before we print send, maybe we should confirm which price is correct. But is that false advertising or is it just simply dumb? I leave it to you to decide. Now, with all this song and dance going on and end of the world as we know it, because the entire creative staff has left, we've kind of sort of forgotten how this month started. And maybe that's intentional. My friend over at Jeff's Games Box, links down below, occasionally, has this paranoia theory that everything Wizards of the Coast is doing is actually intentional to distract us from what's really going on. And the losing Crawford and Perkins, which also Aaron the Relentless has said, was actually planned way ahead of time, possibly even before this year started. It's quite possible that there's some proof to think that Crawford and Perkins' plan to join Darrington was already in motion last year. And I don't know. I mean, there's possibly more to it. Now, it could be, as one person said, that it's just Wizards sending these little submarines out into this, float around in other oceans to sabotage Darrington because they actually think Daggerheart was going to be a potential threat. Daggerheart's the D&D killer. Or it could have just been backroom handshaking where Crawford and Perkins were offered a job ahead of time, and then Perkins announces his retirement, and Crawford, well, there's more and more proof circulating that it's possible Crawford was terminated and not leaving of his own regard. We know that Todd was definitely terminated, and Jess, the woman we talked about yesterday, claimed she was leaving or they weren't renewing her contract. Now, yesterday I said Jess had only been around for a year and a half, but it turns out she'd been around for about 8 years. She'd just been mostly in the Magic the Gathering part, so I never knew about her because I don't cover Magic the Gathering. I just covered Dungeons and Dragons at Wizards of the Coast and occasionally the video games. Speaking of the video games, with all of us paying attention to what's going on over at Darrington and all the firings, we've kind of forgotten the whole thing about them signing this publishing agreement with Giant Skull. Giant Skull developers who are now working on a brand new original Dungeons and Dragons action adventure video game. What has Giant Skull made before? Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, God of War 3, and God of War 2, and something called Exodus, which is what they're working on now for Archetype Entertainment, which is a super science fiction RPG. And also apparently they're doing something called they're doing a G.I. Joe video game through Atomic Arcade. Atomic Arcade is also a subsidiary of Digital. Skeleton Key is working on a project that blends suspense, horrors, and memorable gameplay experiences for Wizards. Skeleton Key over in Austin, Texas, another subsidiary of Wizards of the Coast Digital. So while Wizards of the Coast Magic the Gathering staff has been slashed, Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons has been slashed. Wizards of the Coast Digital seems to be growing in leaps and bounds, and through the various subsidiary companies, they continue to focus more and more on video and less on not renewing contracts as a thing. Yes, it is. Thank you, RPG Grandma. Nice to see you. Hope you are well today. And in these articles, I received my letter that says my employer expects to continue with my services and extend the contract as well as training me in other departmental areas. Congratulations. Yeah. Back when I was working in the education system, I would get that letter saying whether they planned on rehiring me or not for the next year. I miss the littles, but I don't miss the politics. That was back when I could walk to work. Oh, wait, I can't walk to work. In every one of these articles about video games and about this rapid growth of the other half of Wizards, it again, over and over, talks about the plans for the future of the franchise, of the brand, and that future is video games. That future is Dungeons and Dragons. That future is hoping for the same success as Monopoly Go, with whatever we're going to do. So they're already bragging that the next video game they make is going to blow Baldur's Gate 3 out of the water. They're talking about doing video games or bringing video games back from other franchises like G.I. Joe. They're even talking about doing a horror video game. So video game. So 1.5 million down to 5,000. 3% of that 5,000 gone as of yesterday. That includes pretty much 80% of anybody who had anything to do with Dungeons and Dragons, including losing people who actually, as much as we disagree with them and disagree with what they did, actually did something. I mean, Crawford actually did something. Perkins actually did something. Kyle Brink actually did something. Todd actually did something. Jess actually did something. Every termination, every person that has been fired since January 1st or let go or not had their contract renewed or whatever you want to call it. No, it's not. It's not, because the real game is you. Thank you, RPG Grandma. Yes, video games are fun. And they're good time sink and they're a good money sink and they're fun, but it can't replace the real interactiveness between person and person and person and GM. Yep. Okay. Cycling back. Okay. Yeah. So all all the people who actually do things or did things or had anything to do with Dungeons and Dragons, pretty much gone. But the 5,000 less 3% remaining, video games, digital product, digital branding. We've lost the heart and soul of Dungeons and Dragons, but that's okay because the vanity hires like Mackenzie Diams are still there. And that's just so wizards.
Laughing aloud now, magic in the air. Wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so wizards, oh, 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 oh. Life is a spell we know. We're casting joy and glow, oh, oh. That's a wizard show. Mischief in the classroom, potions gone astray. Flying through the quad, now brighter every day. Laughter we cry hard, sneaking out at night. Cloaks in the moonlight, everything feels right. That's so wizards, oh,